Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground magazine, and this is another edition of WCM's Park Update. And of course, my esteemed colleague Mike Gast is here, president of the Emiola Group. And our guest today is someone who's been in the industry for a couple decades at least now, Jim Rogers, the former CEO of Kampgrounds of America Incorporated, and you're on the board of the U.S. Scout, U.S. Boy Scouts, correct?
You're close. You're close. We just renamed it Scouting America.
There we
115
go.
years old, and we just lit up the Empire State Building last weekend. So, yeah, Scouting America. I'm the National Executive Board.
Wow, that's awesome. So you've been in the industry for a long time. I guess just for we always like to do a little bit of background. I guess Jim, just tell us a little bit about how you got into this industry and what you did before.
I worked at summer camps in college called the
Mm-hmm.
Lair of the Golden Bear, which is now 75 years old, and I'm still back active working with them down on campus on a regular basis. That was 1972 that I decided I wanted to build alumni camps. I graduated from Cal Berkeley, and I wrote a letter to Daryl Booth, the president of KOA, and he didn't believe there was an Eagle Scout at Cal Berkeley in those days because that was Mario Savio and free speech and all that good stuff. But he had a good interview and he offered me a management trainee job. So I came home, asked my girlfriend to marry me, and we eventually got married. And on our honeymoon, flew to Billings, Montana. And that was wonderful start into obviously the campground business, certainly back in the day. And KOA was just a go-getter. It was wonderful, relatively small at the time. But I moved on and went to business school. The KOA sponsored my thesis about doing basically corporate camps for major companies in Southern California. And then I decided to move into the casino hotel business, kind of step up my hospitality
Mm-hmm.
degree, and did that for 18 years. And got a phone call from a good old buddy at KOA named Don Lowe, who was still involved with Oscar Tang and the team. And they said Art Peterson was stepping down, and would I be interested in the CEO job? And went to New York, interviewed with Oscar Tang, pulled out my name tag from 1972, and pushed it across the desk and said, "I hope you let me wear this again." And the rest is history.
I mean, I think I've met you at least once in person. My memory's failing me as I get older. So, and I've always heard about some of the stuff you did at KOA, and it's going to be exciting to be able to hear you speak about emerging leaders and different things at the Campground Solutions Summit West, which is coming up in April. I guess, can you just describe a little bit about what you're going to be kind of talking about at the summit? It's in Reno.
Yeah, listen, first of all, the best times in my career, and Mike will affirm this with his as well, are times when we're with other business
Yeah.
folks. And so, the fact that Diana is putting together a West Coast, summit,
Yeah.
there really haven't been that many located in this part of the country. So, good honor, and hopefully it will lead to an opportunity for these operators and suppliers that are in this geographic location to spend some time together. It's overdue, and obviously it's a great opportunity to get educated, share ideas, and whatnot. The other thing is, look, I've lived in Reno for 42 years. It's a boom town. Those of you that haven't been here for a while, you won't recognize it. The Grand Sierra Hotel, where the event is being hosted, is absolutely fantastic. It's a very large 2,000 room facility. It's very similar to a Las Vegas property, though in Reno. It's independently owned, and it's just full of. It's got bowling alleys and obviously a casino, huge showroom, absolutely expensive. So the location is going to be exciting, and obviously seeing Reno, and some of you will do a side trip, 45 minutes to Lake Tahoe, one of the most pretty, alpine lakes in the
Yeah.
world, surrounded by snow-covered mountains right now. So I think the location is ideal because there hasn't been something, and it's very accommodating. It's in the hospitality business. That to me is great. And as you say, I've been asked to sort of talk about emerging leaders. And listen, I listened to Toby O'Rourke's piece a couple weeks ago that you did, and she's so bright and has so much insight into this business. But she talked about streamlining the journey, fixing the friction, and you know, reaffirming that this isn't about a price point; it's about an experience. And isn't it a wonderful business to be in? And since then, I've had some conversations with campground operators and system owners, and it just seems that all of them are striving to be the best outdoor hospitality company in the world, but they're struggling for people. They're struggling for leaders. They're struggling for managers. There's at least the bigger organizations, and I would suggest that mom and pop are struggling somewhat too, because they're wondering what they should do now their business is off a little bit. That you sort of together, you eat together all day long, you're with the same person, so they need a little bit of a spark and an education as well. And hopefully, the summit will allow us to talk about finding great people, or if indeed you are a mom and pop, what are things that you should consider. And I think that this idea of how do we not only recruit and educate people that are interested, and then how do we propose some new innovations that excite them, that want to get them involved. The story I always love to tell is when I was at KOA, I would go out, people would make arrangements, but I went to Ohio State University, the Ohio State University. I guess they just won the national championship for college, but anyway, I taught in the recreation program in the morning. They actually have a recreation, a degree. And so I went into the classroom and I did my thing, and it was a couple classes and it was wonderful, and probably 40 students in each class. In the afternoon, in the gym, we had a career fair. And you had all these companies lined up around the gym. You had Hilton, you had Marriott, you had Disney, and you had KOA. And, I stood there and people walked up to me and said, I really enjoyed your class. But, can you tell me a little about working at KOA? And I'd go through, okay, this is the kind of job you might have. And then they look at me and they go, Jim, I would love to do that. But would you please call my parents and tell them it'd be okay? It was one of these situations where we're not legitimate. Marriott, Hilton, household names, KOA, camping. So we have a need to become a better recruiting, or better, informing the rest of the world what these, to Toby's point, this cool business is all about. And that people would want, and today, come on, today, I mean, with all the federal workers being laid off, Southwest Airlines just cut 25% of the workforce, whatever. I mean, we have this opportunity, if we're looking for people that have great service orientation and understand the outdoors, just some of these Forest Service folks that got cut off, So my point to that is that I think, and you specifically, Ben, and your publication and your online services can help. We tend to talk to ourselves. I mean, your publication goes to a lot of people that are already in the business. We need to get you to be more proactive at doing the publicity outside of our industry. And I really think that the folks, at the industry, the outdoor education, outdoor hospitality folks in Denver need a little bit more of this too, so that we can indeed take them and help project the kind of work that we do in the business that we're in.
Yeah,
That's for starters. I just think that there's a need to find great candidates. As Collins always says, you got to find the right people. And I think that we need to be an industry or a business, a sector that can attract great folks.
So, talking about attracting folks, I won't call it great, but you were the one that hired me into the business in 2021 or
What a mistake that was. Oh my God!
And you were responsible for my career in camping. And one of the things that you brought to KOA almost immediately was a lot of data. We made a lot of data-driven decisions, and kind of quit flying by the seat of our pants a little bit. how is that reliance on data changed the industry? Are we in much better shape than we were before?
I would say that for us to attract, I'm going to go back to the attraction component because I think people that are in today's world expect a fairly sophisticated approach to management, and it's not a seat of the pants. I mean, it's not just the cigar box you look at every night and see how the revenues came in as it would have been in the '60s at a KOA campground. I think they're watching it, and these multiple campground owners, the Spacious guys, and I mean, they're really fairly sophisticated in that capability, and I think that people that are going to join them or people that are coming out of other venues don't want to come in and just think that we're just we're cutting firewood and cleaning bathrooms. That there's some element of management discipline that's associated with that. That's what I'm doing currently with the Lair of the Bear, which is 75 years old, but still operating the way it was operated 20 years ago. We need to look at food and menus. We need to look at the sophisticated mattresses. We need to look at Wi-Fi. We haven't had Wi-Fi, and so they're going through those pieces. So I think the answer to your question is we are never going to be as sophisticated as the AIs and the Apples in the world, but we have to have some element of that, especially if it has a component that serves the guest.
Does that kind of work to attract people to the industry too? If we have some of that stuff and we're more like technologically advanced, I guess, would that attract more people to the industry?
I think that if you look at the Wall Street Journal, on a regular basis, and they're doing research of employees, most employees today don't list pay as the top reason they're there. There's a cause. There's a purpose to their work. And I think Mike and I would go home in Billings feeling good that we'd help put people into the outdoors. We'd help put people together. And so I think this idea of being in the outdoor hospitality business is the cause is number one. It's like getting rid of, plastics. It's a cause. It has a benefit. Now, the second level, aside you get from that, is are we operating our businesses in a little more sophisticated way to be able to become better at what we do? And everybody, look at one of my kind of heartaches is that everybody claims to be the best. We were there with KOA. I go down the highway and I visit a KOA and they look at me and go, Jim, let's do a tour. And we finish the tour and I go, how you doing? Oh, Jim, I'm the best KOA in America. I'm like, oh, good for you. But that 200 miles down the road, it's got some problems. And I go down the road and sure, there we go. And I'm like, well, Jim, I run the best KOA in America. Well, it's just ironic that the hotel that we used when we first handed out the first ratings of the entire system is the Grand Sierra Resort. And we handed those out, took a break, and the bathrooms were full of crying owners. Because for the first time ever, they indeed had a scale that rated them on the overall performance. The industry needs this. I ran Harris. I had a five-star hotel at Reno at Lake Tahoe, mobile and AAA, highest rated casino hotel in America. But I could claim that it wasn't something I self-claimed. It's something which others claimed on my behalf, which then I could tell the traveling public that this was the highest rated hotel casino in America. Our segment doesn't have that. We need to begin to think about ways we can bring that kind of, we've got some review processes, but maybe it's time for the folks, again, to me, the opportunity is for the outdoor hospitality industry to begin to consolidate some of that so we can be talking about this rather than everybody pounding their chest and saying, we're the best.
Yeah.
So I went beyond the technology, but I do think that the cause and the sophistication and the ideas that we can innovate can attract great employees and maybe great owners. I mean, as you know, in the business you've done, and what I said to you when you asked me to do this, Ben, is there are two people in the world that have the best understanding of our business, and it's the two of you, because you have talked to everybody, and you are the Google of our industry. But you don't. It's like I want a column by you guys in the printed version of the things that you've seen or you've taken away from this that are the common denominators that come from all the people you've spoken to, because there's nobody else that's done that. You know,
Yeah.
I told you I was going to ask you questions because it seems to me that you can identify where we should be going, in some of this, because you've had all of the folks sort of identify what are the hot spots.
One of the things that come to mind was 25 years ago, when we were both at KOA. We had cabins. We had the small little cabins. We had rustic cabins, no bathrooms in them, limited services. They probably wouldn't see much for staff members while they were staying in those cabins. And we never had an idea what glamping was going to be. It was something that opened up an entire new customer base to the campground owners, and it was kind of a fight. I remember, early in those early years when we tell people you got to have a bathroom, you got to have food service, you got to have linens. Remember linens? My God, that was a huge thing to get people to go into washing the sheets and providing those for people. And now it's kind of become a standard of what people want. That's one of those things that I think campground owners look at and think it as a burden instead of an opportunity.
No question, and I think those are the kinds of things that eventually, probably long term they fail. I mean, they do. It's an evolution. I mean, they don't stock their store well. They don't, and the expectation of the camper has raised. I mean, I come in from Harrah's where the expectation of somebody pulling into my porte cochere is way up here, and I go into KOA and the expectation of people coming in the driveway is fairly low. But what's happening is, I mean, look, I just got the oil changed in my car. Jiffy Lube. These guys have got tattoos all over their body. They were the kindest, nicest people, and you go out into the bay and the customer of the day, and they walk me to the reception and they describe the oil they're going to put in. I mean, I'm getting high quality service at a lube change. So the expectations that we have are elevated. When I arrive at a campground, guess what? It's not necessarily another campground or the hotel. It's at the 7-Eleven, the Jiffy Lube, and other places I had an experience. If you're not keeping up, and I think part of this visitation, this opportunity to educate and spend time together, allows people to see how we are moving, moving up in terms of the way we're delivering outdoor hospitality. I think the other thing that is important to emerging leaders is not only that we attract them, but we got to fire them up. And I think, again, this applies to mom and pops as well as potential folks. And one of the biggest things that I think is important in coaching, outdoor hospitality leaders and figuring out best practices is visiting the competition, or visiting other campgrounds. I think that really it's essential that people in the off season, or even when they're, they take a vacation, that they go look at what's going on in other parts of the country or other parts. Heck, I used to go stay in my competitor's hotel, to see what the linens were like and what kind of cup was in the bathroom and how I got to the room. But I think this the folks, Aaron and Dan Thiem, the town campground in Nevada City that you write about a lot. They put their strategic planning together. They go visit other places. They come back and sort of say, what is it that we found? Wonderful. And I just did the same thing again with this Lair of the Bear. We just put 7 people, and we went down to the San Diego KOA, and we looked at accommodations that are eco structures and park models and cabins and RV sites. And then we went up to an outdoor education center that's run by the Boy Scouts of America in Irvine. And then we headed up to Lake Arrowhead, and we saw the UCLA's camp. So we took the group that's managing this facility, and for a day and a half, looked at other places. Oh, my God, the discussions that went there. So part of that development of the team is to encourage them to break out and go look at, other places. I think the other thing is they need a mentor. I think these folks they need to find somebody that they trust, somebody that they believe in, and that it's not a friend, but they can have open conversations, and hopefully, our successful entrepreneurs that can help guide them. I always look to others. So I went to Unreasonable Hospitality. I turned to the books, and this is the hottest book in hospitality right now. Okay, this is Will Guidera. Will owned one of the top restaurants in New York. He now has basically every Tuesday he does a pre-meal, which is what happens in a restaurant before you get ready for the opening the door. He does a pre-meal with the world. He shares a story. It's kind of his little podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
now he's created a conference called Welcome. He's going to have it in Texas this year. But it's become
Yeah.
just this incredible, wonderful example of a leader. Jim Collins, got to have one. You got to read it. You got to know what it is. Jim Collins is still appropriate. It's been around a long time. We used it at Harrah's. We used it at KOA. And again, it's getting the right people on the bus, getting them in the right position. The entrepreneurial component is the E-Myth Manager. This is a must-have because this is mom and pop saying I'm spending too much time, in the business rather than working on the business, and this is essential in terms of what kind of perspective should I get. And lastly, the Harvard Business School. I got introduced to this at Harris, the value profit chain for those people that really want to get fairly sophisticated and thinking about service and the way it generates revenue. So I think there's an opportunity in mentoring not only in an individual, but in finding literature or people that are leaders within certain segments and seeing if some of the things that they're proposing can also help me develop as the leader in the business that I'm in.
Do
And
you,
these next generation of leaders are going to be looking for career paths too, which always haven't been that great in the camping business. But now that we've got these small little corporations and these groups starting up, they've got a real career path to go to.
yeah.
And the smallness leads to sometimes the absence of that sophistication. But guess what? You can bring that in. We don't have to be thought of that way. And look, I'm going to be giving some of these books away at the summit. So, it's worth the trip just to get a free copy of a Will Guidera's book. So I think, I think that if you're, what I always found back to the first point is that when I get together with others in my business, there's an intellectual interest that we don't tend to get if we're sitting there in church and the guy next to me owns a hardware store, sells insurance. But if the folks sitting next to me own another campground, we start getting into the mud. And as Mike will know, we'll start talking about sewage treatment plants. And that's a common denominator, among campground owners. So I just think these get-togethers are so precious, and so much of what you've done and Sherman before you. I mean, the publication obviously shares business and knowledge and those sorts of things. It's very important to a small industry like we're in to be able to see those kinds of stories and that knowledge. I just think we've got to begin to think about ways we can get it beyond our own neighborhood.
Yeah, I think KOA is definitely leading to some degree on some of that. With I think the internship program they have right now is pretty incredible. I know they do some mentoring through there, and they've been able to gather some really great relationships with some universities and things through that program. I guess what's interesting is, Ojai has a young professionals group where they bring together younger people, leaders, thought leaders, and they converse about different things. But it seems like on the industry side, it's hard to get those people together throughout the year or be able to find ways to continue to mentor those individuals throughout their careers. I guess that's one of the things I see.
Just think strategically about your publication and your
Yeah,
website, because look at I think there are hotel schools, Cornell, Las
yeah,
Vegas, the Harris School. I mean, the first thing I did with the folks from the Lair, the senior management at the Lair of the Bear, was I got them enrolled on your newspaper. I
yeah,
mean, so I think you have knowledge that you could get copies to a couple of these hotel schools, so that they begin to think about this other discipline or other medium that can benefit from their expertise. But you can help do that. I think you and OHI could have a sequential column that's training in campground management every month or whenever you come out. But the point is, it'd be written almost like a professor in the classes that you're teaching. But it's a series of 5 articles on human resources or something. But the point is, you help facilitate that education process because you've provided that continuity versus your special writers that are talking about given topics. Give me a training. Give me a training mode in the publication. That if I'm interested, I'm going to be sure. It's like looking for the next issue. I want to read the next piece. I want to take the test. You know. I know we're going to run short of time, and I just wanted to be sure that on the innovative side, that part of what we're going to talk about in Reno is we're going to talk about Scouting America, because Scouting America is where people enter the camping world. Whether it's Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, 195,000 girls in Scouting America now. 195,000 girls in the Scouting America program. 16,000 Eagle Scouts that are girls.
Wow.
They enter, that's an entry point. But every community has a Girl Scout group or a Boy Scout group. Every campground should have a relationship with that scouting group. Okay? And there are a variety of reasons why. Camps are failing. The summer camps only used in the summer. They need something they can use every weekend. A campground is the place to do it. Breakfast pizza. We sell pizza for dinner. My biggest use of pizza at Harrah's when I was selling at my buffet was the breakfast pizza. And we're going to talk about, are you thinking about sending people out with coffee and a breakfast pizza? You know, what can you do? And then I think this idea of unreasonable hospitality. There's some ideas that we can create. I call it intentional hospitality, but there are things that we can build into our processes. The name tag, where you put your local town. Or I was at a place the other day, UCLA, where they actually put the major, the student that they're studying that's up there in the summer. They put the major that they're in. So the customer, the camper, looks at it and goes, "Oh, I was in engineering too. Can I help you find a job?" So there are a variety of things we're looking at as I'm going to put forward in this summit, given the 10 minutes they'll give me, is to try to take these leaders and help them think about innovative ideas going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. I mean, I think that's all stuff that people need to hear. You're probably going to end up getting more phone calls. People are going to want you at other conferences.
Well, I haven't done a conference in a long time, and the fact it's in my backyard makes it somewhat appealing. But I think we need to shake the trees a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, if I read what you post, I'm a little surprised at how much self-gratification we write about. That everybody's the best, and you know what? I love that attitude, but I think we've got to talk about what Andre Agassi said. He said you can't get ready or know the outcome, but you can have an impact on the effort you put into it.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to focus a little more on the effort, and quit singing our praises. Let the guests sing our praises, and if that comes from Travel Advisor or comes from AAA or comes from whoever, great. But what we've got to do is focus on new ideas and some ways to better. And here's the last one I'll leave with you. Okay? Picnic. Not overnight at a campground. Picnic at a campground. Think about all the people that are driving down the road and figuring out, looking at the wife, looking at the husband, where do you think we ought to have lunch? Or looking in the back seat and looking at the 6-year-old saying, "Hey, where do you want to have lunch?" We ought to be at a campground. There's a huge piece of picnic business which becomes a test run on that facility that those people may come to on the return trip or come to in the future. And we just ignore that midday period. So guess what? Come on out to Reno and I'll talk to you about a picnic.
Maybe we can have a picnic if the weather's nice. So
dinner, first night, put it on your calendar.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim, for coming on the show. I'm really looking forward to the Solutions Summit West. It's going to be a great event at the beginning of April, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your ideas in the different sessions that you're going to do. So it's going to be exciting. And I'm looking forward to being in Reno. I've never been to Reno, so it
And
should be
it'll be
fun.
April Fools, so we'll have all kinds of fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim, for coming on the show, and thanks everyone for watching.